So we're absolutely rapt about the fact of the success of our first event in 1993, and we're now entering into the new event for 1994, and the association with Waikato Regional TV is quite exciting. This is an ambitious project, and it's a real first, and it's something that the Waikato, the City of Hamilton, will be really, really proud of. We've had tremendous response from competitors for the event, from all over New Zealand, our international stars, Sir Jack Brabham, Chris Amon. The whole thing is going to be brought to you live by Waikato Regional TV, and we thank them very, very much for their support.
Well, I'd like to wish the Waikato Regional Television Company all the best for this weekend. I understand it's the first weekend of a live television broadcast, and I'd like to wish you all the best and hope it's a great success.
Well, this is obviously an historic moment. We've talked about regional television since the year dot in this place, and here it is. It looks as though it's not going to be very long before this sort of broadcast is going to be followed by regular broadcasts, and we really welcome that. It's time we had regional television. We've got virtually everything else in this community, and we need regional television. Congratulations, and we're looking forward to the formality of a fully fledged regional television station in this area.
I'd like to declare the Telecom Classic Motorfest open, and sincerely hope that you have a very enjoyable weekend. Take it.
There's the flag. We're running. They've started. The group 2 saloons are on the way. It looks like the little Capri, but here's something hurtling out the outside, which has to obviously be one of the escorts.
And it's Bill Tunzelman.
Yes, he goes very well too. We've seen a wee bit of performing from him, but it's Roger Litton who's holding on to second place at this stage in the office saloon.
Yes, well, the Datsun had a bad start. Once again, probably too much wheel spin. Dropped back to 4th, but he's carved straight back into 3rd. So we've got car 17, Bill Tunzelman in the lead, Steve Litton in 2nd, Bert Quinn in 3rd. So we're looking at Escort, Sud, Datsun, Escort, Lotus Cortina, and what was the next car?
It looked like the Capri, wasn't it? With the little
So they're bunching up now behind the little Escort, and as the tyres warm up and the brakes get warmed up, we'll probably see these cars at full speed. And I think that looked like a Corolla that we were looking at in 5th place.
What impresses me very much is the way the cars are set up. They're doing, you know, the handling on them is very, very good. They look. They're very confident. The drivers are confident in them, and going extremely well. Those first 5 are having a very, very good race as they go down. It's still Bill Tunzelman, but Litton's looking for a gap on the inside.
And they're side by side through that corner there. And who's going to get the best of that?
Yeah,
Bert Quinn got him, or they're still side by side. Steve Litton, and he's
got him on the line. Yeah.
So the Datsun is through into 2nd place. Michael Brown and his Escort is in 4th behind the other 3. And here we go, Bert Quinn in his 200 horsepower Datsun Triple S, challenging Bill Tunzelman in the lead in the little Escort Mark 1 twin cam. Of course, a Mark 1 twin cam is a very fast, well balanced Tongi racing car.
Oh yes. Yeah, and it's got good turning into the corners. You can see it go in there very nicely. He's driving it very well. He's got to be driving defensively at this point. That's car 17 leading, but right in behind him is number 11, which is the car Bert Quinn. And then you've got the Alpha Sud right in behind them again, looking for a gap. So any mistake, and they'll be right through. The rest of the field is streaming through, but at this stage, they're sort of playing second fiddle to these 3.
This is making excellent television. So here we go, Bert Quinn going to challenge on the outside. Now, this is the main straight. This is the longest straight. A good launch into this corner, and it could see I'd imagine the extra power of the Triple S do the trick. And they're going to brake now for the corner. He's taken the inside line as they hang a right-hand corner, and he's definitely taken that lead away. So excellent driving there from Bert Quinn. The question is, can Bill Tunzelman mount an attack back on him? Because his car, I imagine, is lapping at the same speed.
Yes, I think if anything, Tunzelman was starting to slow them down a little bit. It just seems to have lost a little bit of grip through there, but he's still driving very defensively, and he's got the other car behind him is 59. Now that's going extremely well. That's Michael Brown. He's in a twin cam also, but he's sort of on the tail of them all at this stage.
Yes, well, of course, we've forgotten about the Alpha Sud there.
Yes,
he's still sitting in there. Had it been wet, as you said before, the front wheel drive could have been an advantage. Oh, and that's Michael Brown.
Now, yeah. They sort of jumped him on that corner there a bit. He was a bit wide there, and they cut through on him. But look at that three-wheeling through the corner. That's confidence.
So it's still Bill Tunselman in second, Michael Brown in third, and Lytton.
Yes, and in 52 is Greg Kirkman, who's sitting back there, and he's...
So we've got the Lotus.
There, the Lotus Cortina looking like it might just take the opposite on this corner, but...
We had them side by side, and they've touched.
That was coming, you could see that.
Yes,
Lytton was really just moving across on him, so, but no damage. It looked like it was saved very well.
Yes, it looked as though the Lotus Cortina was in with a chance there, but when the Alpha Sud flicked over to take his line, he just banged the front of the Lotus Cortina out of the way, who locked up its brakes, didn't touch the tyres, who are very close to them though. He managed to recover from that.
'39 is on the program as Errol Hall. He's driving a Cortina GT. And there's the checkered flag for a very well-deserved win for number 11, Bert Quinn.
Tunselman second.
He was second.
Michael
yes.
Brown third.
Yep.
We went off here for a short time, but during that time, Denis Jones was the program as number 151. They lead a bit more, and they take up more road on the exit.
Flags up and the flag's down, and we've got a start.
And this
Ross
is
Calgan very, very sideways off the line, a lot of grunt, but look at Owen Evans, just he's gone, slingshot.
Well, this is the disadvantage of my TR7 has against my beloved Porsches. How can they beat the traction of the boxer motor slung out over the rear axle, twisting the gearbox the correct way, powering the car down onto the ground. But let's have a look at some of the other cars. We've got two TR7s and a Rice Burner, a Datsun 240Z.
And a Mark 1, that was a
260Z, was it?
Anyway, it's going very, very sideways, used up all of the track and more, came back and across the front of the cars. Around the sand roundabout they go, all taking various lines. Around under the bridge, through the trees, into the very, very picturesque, almost suburban part of the track. Owen Evans continues to lead from the two TR8s, and then the CNG powered. I find that difficult to accept. It is in fact running on CNG, but it says so. So the 240Z.
Well, that'd be the darker green, not the lime one. So just check these as they come. That's the lime, the dark green one. That in fact is running on CNG, and Paul Loic in the Morgan +8 there, coming through at about 10th place. We haven't seen him for a long time. Also raced the Lister Jagger. Here's Owen Evans coming through the wetter part of the track into the main straight. And it's Carl Hansen who won this race, first race of the day, who was in second, and Ross Cowger is in third. These cars look very similar, but that's Carl Hansen in second, Ross Cowger in third, and it looks like Owen Evans, the winner of the Wellington Street Race, is going to run away with this. Again, do I see a dent in the side of that car?
Yes, indeed. In fact, Bill Bryce and I know, or Bill Bryce, give him full credit, noticed that with his eagle eyes in the last race.
Well, I don't know what happened there. Owen is a very clean driver, doesn't get many dents, although
he's a world-famous panel beater, of course, so he can fix them easily.
Yes, well, a few other drivers on the track could reasonably say that Owen leaned on them in such a way that they couldn't quite handle what was coming up next. Notice the off-camber corner there.
Yes, indeed. That's a very, very
wide.
difficult corner. And that's over the back of this picturesque part of the circuit. Very, very difficult corner. You go into the drums here at the bat of an eyelid.
Well, here we've got a Corvette and an E-Type. The Corvette is not as wildly modified as some of the others in New Zealand, and he's holding out the E-Type and Paul Loic's Morgan +8, so that's a good effort. It's fairly standard, 350 horsepower. And car 13 is Harley Noringer and the MGB V8. Now, they can be very fast, and some of them were doing very well in the earlier races. Here we have a TVR. Rod Hemmings in the 3-litre, that'll be the V6.
Yes, it will be, 3-litre V6 car.
Further back we've got Shane Joyce in the Triumph Spitfire. Looks excellent. And so the TR7's holding Carl Hansen certainly holding the Porsche very well, and he put in a great show this morning. So my choice of a TR7 win might be not be too far off the mark.
Not all that far off at all. But then we do in fact have a lady here. I didn't realise that until just now. A Lotus 7 driven by Raywyn Fraser-Jones, and she's got to be perhaps the better half of Les Fraser-Jones, who drove the Buckler in the race before this.
That was the green CNG powered 240Z we just missed as we're chatting away there. So Owen under more pressure from the TR7. Now, Owen is probably one of the best drivers out there. And I would say that Carl Hansen following him is picking up his lines, picking up his confidence and saying, wait a minute, I can beat this guy, and he's going to have a go. And this is a vital corner coming into the main straight where the power down the main straight has to be applied.
The checkered flag is out. Checkered flag. Owen Evans takes, I think it's his third race today from Carl Hansen. And then back and coming into view now, we have Ross Kolga and the second of the TR8s.
Racing last night was fantastic.
You enjoyed that, did you?
Well, I tell you what, it's most probably one of the best race meetings I've ever been to. It was fantastic.
They haven't got these sort of races in Australia, have they?
No, I've taken a few photographs back to Adelaide so I can say what to do when they have a historic race meeting.
Do you think we'll ever see the day we get Formula 5000s back on the track?
You'll never see it back as current racing, but my plans are to try and get the organisers to run in our international series a couple of 10-lap races for 12 or 14 of these cars starting from next year, and I'm working on Australia and a bit of America and what we've got here, and we can line up those, and then you will see crowds come back.
Thanks, Kenny. We wish you well, and we'd love to see it on the circuit here. We have Graeme Lawrence here. Graeme, we're going to have to stop meeting like this. People start to talk. You're ready to go on the track. What do you think?
Well, we decided that, you know, the public have come here and it's the enthusiasm that everybody's had. They deserve the opportunity, and as much as anything else, like Sir Jack and Chris and Kenny and all the rest of the guys said, hey, we'll go and do it for them and do our best and at least give them the opportunity to see it all happen.
I've got to say congratulations and top marks to the Hamilton organisers as it starts to rain, unfortunately, for putting together this. I mean, it hasn't cost them nothing to bring these people here, and my understanding is that Sir Jack Brabham over the past week in Hamilton has been an absolute just an ambassador for the sport, just fantastic.
Well, a lot of people that knew him in the old days said it's a pity he wasn't like it then. Chris Amon there definitely giving the old 250F a bit of a clean out.
John Walker we've talked about. Kevin, John Cannon we haven't talked about. Now, John Cannon's out there somewhere, and which car he's in?
Well, he's in the second number 12. There's two 12s out there, but it's the little black Brabham with Uniden on it. That's the ex-Rolly Levis car. There's Chris Amon getting it a bit sideways, and, giving it a real bit of a tweak.
I have Chris Amon with me, a very famous New Zealander. Welcome here, Chris.
Thank you, John.
And of course we have Dougal Stevenson here, and I want to know what Dougal's doing, because Dougal has been around the track this afternoon with a TV camera, and I'm very interested.
Well, in between doing some commentaries for you guys on the racing circuit itself, I've been trying to beard Chris Amon, the lion in his den. You may remember years ago, and you're certainly old enough, that we had a
Not me.
Chris featured. Oh, you should be funny. We're trying to, it's a sort of a reunion, oh dear, and we'll be having drinkies and cakes afterwards, and then they'll put blankets over our legs and put us back in our wheelchairs. Now, we think, at least I think, and a group of us think, that it's high time someone did the story of Chris Amon for television. And so, with Chris's kind consent, we've been getting ourselves involved in some of the things around here that he used to be involved with, like Ferrari, of course, and the Maserati that he's driving today. So that's basically what I've been doing with that crew.
I think it's good to see, because a lot of people don't realise just how much of a famous Ferrari driver you were.
Well, it has, in fact, it's something that Dougal suggested a few years ago, and of course it was really going to be Bruce and Denny and myself, because Denny unfortunately is no longer with us, but I would certainly like, just as much for my own sake, but for their memories as well, to see something done, yeah.
Yes, well, the flag's gone down, and
yep, there we go. It looks like
car 14, which is I think it's that Formula Ford car. They're all Formula Fords. The first two cars are Formula Fords, followed by the Gemini.
Yes, well, the Mirage, or the M5, if it's a 1600, it is that one. That's Steve O'Donoghue. That's the one that came out of JW Auto Engineering.
I see that it's actually in the Gulf colours too, the blue with the orange on it.
Yes, that's right. They've painted it up that way. That was the... Whoops, he just got a bit tied up there on the apex, but managed to keep it on the island.
Because Mirage, who built this, also built GT40 lookalikes, didn't they?
Yes. Oh, went on with the 917 Porsche, did all sorts of goodies like that. But
the pale green car in fourth position is Peter Benbrough with the BRP, which we told you about before, a car that's been built in this country by Paris Dejoux. He's in fourth position.
So we just pick up the numbers. There's Charlie Conway at the back of the grid in the low line. So he's probably going to charge through a little bit. But these little cars on slippery conditions. So 72.
Car 72 is Morris O'Reilly in the Crossley Formula Ford. Morris O'Reilly, who was running a Fiat 125T in one of the earlier races, and also who contested the Peter Jackson Relt series in a Relt.
Well, look at the moves.
One of the first.
Yeah, Ken Williams has pulled on them all now in the Gemini, and he's away. He's not going to take any prisoners
He
at
has
all.
not either. He's certainly got into the lead.
And then we've got Morris O'Reilly in 72. Then we go back down to the BRP car number 2, and he's under a lot of pressure too on braking going into the right-hander.
Whoa, look at this. The leader under a lot of pressure there.
Yes, Morris O'Reilly back to third place.
He's coming back at him, isn't he?
There's been a bit of a movement going on.
He's out alongside him. As he got past him, he has. Morris... No, it isn't. It's not Morris O'Reilly.
No, he's back in fourth place now. He's just been...
This is Rod and Wootton, I think, in the Brabham, and the ex-Rolly Levis Brabham.
Yes,
now owned by Charlie Conway.
Yep, that would be...
You're right about that Cooper Formula Junior car. It looks very, very pretty, doesn't it, with the dark,
the
white lines over it.
Just about to be gobbled up, I think, by the rest of the field coming through. But here is number 12.
Rod and Wootton.
Yep. The ex-Rolly Levis car.
About 165 horsepower from the Lotus twin-cam motor. But he's just going to streak away now, I think.
Yes, it's probably he's got it all sorted out now with a good dry line, and looks like Jeff Maddings pulled in there with the Volpini.
Yes.
It looks like there's something wrong with the right rear wheel, but could have been just an illusion as they push him off the side of the road.
Right, Rod and Wootton in first place, 150 metres. He's still, I mean, he has just gone for the doctor, as they say. There was a huge gap opened up. Looks like Neil Fraser's got one of the better starts, though. No, it is in fact that car 1. No, it's car 17. Is it car 17? Or is it 1? And a bit of a job here picking it up.
I think it's Gary O'Keefe, but let's have a look. He's certainly sideways, and he's losing it through the first curve, and Neil Fraser certainly has pipped him into that corner, and so Fraser's immediately popped into the lead. We've got Edgar Salvetka in third in the ESC, and we've got the Sylvia Striker in fourth position, but we'll pick up as we go through this corner here.
Let's not forget that in the first race, John Bloomendale had a very, very comfortable win, even beating Steve Millen. And it's still Neil Fraser leading John Bloomendale.
Well, Neil Fraser's a past master at this, but John Bloomendale and his Fraser, he's holding the company flag up for him. I don't know what Neil Fraser's doing, but he looks like he's smiling in the lead there, so perhaps he's pleased to see a Fraser right behind him, but he's having to do a bit of a Nigel Mansell weave there to keep him out.
Oh, I'd have thought that was an Ayrton Senna weave.
Oh, you're right.
An Ayrton Senna block, I would have said. There'll be a fist next. I like Neil Fraser's... now there's a change. There is a change at the front. John Bloomendale has through on Neil Fraser and into the lead. I like Neil Fraser's number plate, Brim.
Well, that's the only point on the circuit we don't have a camera on, so we can't tell you how that happened. And of course we won't get an action replay because the camera doesn't reach that particular point. And Neil Fraser's started to look a bit hairy around the track now. He's full of opposite lock slides, not as smooth as he was, so he must have his anger up, and he's coming out of these corners with these lurid opposite lock slides. Certainly not the best way to accelerate down the main straight.
When it comes to these kit cars, I get the impression that Neil Fraser and the Fraser factory, the Fraser company, actually designed their cars a little bit more tightly and they're a bit more firm in their specifications than, say, Chevron, where Chevron will sell you the bits and pieces and allow you to go away and put whatever you like in it. Neil Fraser doesn't like to see Mazda rotaries, for example, in his cars because he says that they should handle rather than go be quick through sheer grunt. And Neil Fraser is has a slightly purist attitude, I think, towards. Oh, look at that! The Peter Scudder, very sideways.
But he held that back together. Where's Steve Ward gone? See if we can pick him up. The camera's focusing on the front cars, and we can't see back too clearly at all occasions. But certainly Edgar Salvetka in his homemade ESC Mark III.
Oh, there we
very
are.
Well.
The V8 powered Silver Striker just went by us. In fact, it's in front. He's got in front. That's why. There it is. There. You see, yes. He's in front now of the orange 4-cylinder one.
So we must have about 2 more laps to go. I wonder if Steve Ward can make up from his lowly grid position to get back into the lead. He's certainly the next car in his sights is the white car of Edgar Salvetka.
And there we have an accident. Somebody has hit the drums. Car 16, which is Eric Stansfield and a Fraser Clubman. He has hit the drums.
And certainly John Bloomendale, he certainly pulled away from Neil Fraser. Thankfully, I don't think I've heard a Mazda rotary all day.
Thankfully. You do not like the sound of them?
No, I love the motor, great technology, but the noise will drive an old man like me mad. Oh, and Neil Fraser.
He's using a lot of road there, isn't he? It's getting very, very twitchy.
So that's the tightest part of the circuit with trees on both sides. You wouldn't want to lose it there. Stephen Ward starting to make his move. So here we come into the start-finish straight, probably for the last time. We can't spot the checkered flag from here.
No, I can't quite see the checkered flag.
And here it is.
Checkered flag
John
is out.
Bloomendale.
John Bloomendale makes it 2 from 2 starts today.
Gary Hodnott, who's the General Manager of Telecom here in the Waikato region. And Gary, a very good afternoon to you. I know I interrupted your lunch very suddenly there.
That's all right.
But he has finished eating his chicken, he tells me. Now, Gary, tell me, why did you get involved with the Classic Motorfest?
The main reason that Telecom got involved was to provide the telecommunications for the event. There's a lot of marshals out there who need to be kept in touch so the track can be run, the whole race can run. We've given them 0800 numbers so they can get their bookings. We've given them fax lines, ordinary phone lines, cell phones, pages, all so that they can keep in touch and have a smooth running event.
Frank Pierce, who seems to have got a very good start. Now, take into account the circuit is still a bit slippery, so there'll have to be a little bit of discretion shown here, but it looks like the ex-Ernie Sprague Zephyr is off and leading the field.
And Kevin Mills has slipped his Escort into second position. I think the Frank Pierce had too much grunt for him. So we've got 2 Fords in the lead, followed by a Jaguar. And then we'll pick up the 4th place car.
Yes, well, there's quite a bit of shuffling going on there at present, but there's no doubt about it. The Zephyr is cleared out by 2 or 3 car lengths, car 46.
Now, car 46 is, in fact, Ernie Sprague, who was the terror of South Island motor racing all those years ago. He dumped his race car, and this car was built up by Ernie Sprague's mechanics a few years ago, about 5 years ago, using some of the old bits Ernie Sprague kept from his race car. And it's being driven in the same way today by Frank Pierce, wild and lurid and very fast too.
I think what might happen too, Digby, with the slippery track conditions, we might see some of the front-wheel drive cars, the little Alfa Sud, hold its own a wee bit, because the others don't really get the Zephyr leading the little Kevin Mills going through in the Escort, which should have a very good power-to-weight ratio here in the wet.
Yes, the Jaguar's driven by Norm Agnew. Now, he didn't feature in the last race. He was about 5th, but he's certainly well up there this time. Meanwhile, Frank Pierce still holding out the Ford Escort of... oh, now we've got a fix on car number 62. That's Gary Berry in the Hulme mix. He's off the track. His car's okay, but he's pretty close to where the spectators were, where he's ended up there, Bill.
Yes, it's shades of not much between them and a car coming through there, but the 2 of them off the road as we pick up the leader, which is still car number 46, Frank Pierce. You see the louver on the bonnet there, Digby. That was a very sophisticated sort of piece of machinery in those days. They did a wonderful engineering job on that car. Oh, and 43 is just understeered. John Marsden in the Tirana, straight into the tyres. No way of getting around, but it doesn't look like it's done too much. Hasn't even creased the guard onto the wheel, so he sets off after the rest.
So we've had 3 cars off in this race that we know of. We've got a bit of panel damage on that BMW and that Humber 80. Oh, and the Escort, sorry, the Capri GT is retired, car number 36.
Yep.
So this must be the last lap with the Zephyr,
yes,
the Escort, and here we are. So it's Frank Pierce crossing the line in first. Second is the Ford Escort of
Kevin Mills, number 30. Yes.
Right.
And that was a good drive, because he stayed in touch, and he didn't have much opportunity to get past the Zephyr, but he hung on to it all the way.
All right, Morris O'Reilly's got a cross-street Formula Ford. The flag's down and they're off, and there's a lot of cars there getting very, very sideways, including Peter Benbrook in the VRP. Very, very tricky conditions. I'd sooner them than me, to be absolutely honest. Rain splashing about as they head up to the first corner, which takes them out of Telecom straight into corner 2. I think I need my glasses on to read that.
Well, it's sort of Tristram Avenue, and they run up through to Seddon Road now, up to corner 3.
And as we talk, the rain fair buckles down, and the winner, the leader, is in fact Morris O'Reilly from over the hill at Tauranga. And look at that, very, very bad conditions. The rain is just bucketing down. Morris O'Reilly from Tauranga in the Crossley Formula Ford, the car built in Ireland, of course, with a name like Crossley.
Yes, it's a just looking further to see. It is a Crossley with a 1600. He's probably getting a better power weight ratio than the others, and making quite a bit of a difference. But he's had a couple of races this year, Morris. I think he drove in the New Zealand Grand Prix, didn't he?
But in the lead, Morris O'Reilly, followed by Peter Benbrook. I would say that these two drivers are doing their level there. 6th and 3rd place, which is Ken Williams, and the Gemini Formula Junior car from many years back.
Well, the visibility's getting a lot worse. might have paid to sort of put them away in the shed until this was over, I think.
Well, there's 3 cars there with what seem to have lost the third place car, although it looks like car 14, which is, I think, the ex-Sylvia Moser car that you were talking about before. It certainly looks as though it's in the blue of the former Graeme Lawrence team. I'm not sure, though. Just a little bit difficult to see amidst all this spray. You can certainly see the leading car at car 2, which is the second place car, which is Peter Benbrook, but from there on, they're just in an absolutely a mist of rain.
Yes, well, there's no doubt about it's 72 out in front, which is Maserati, but there's some very spirited driving going on there, Alan.
Certainly Peter Benbrook.
Having a look at him.
See which car is in third. Well, it is.
Yeah, coming down the inside of him.
It is car 6, isn't it? Car 14, no, car 14. Steve O'Donoghue.
Yep.
And the Mirage Mark 5 Formula 4.
Yes.
Car 24, that's a very, very pretty car. That's Jeff Manning with his Volpini Formula Junior car. One of the very first Formula Junior cars that were built in Italy with Fiat 1100 running gear in them virtually.
Well, that particular one, of course, was driven by Bandini, by Lorenzo Bandini. It actually ran 4th at Monaco in 1958 and it was 2nd overall in the 58 Italian Championship. So quite a historic car, that one.
Well, thank goodness the rain appears to be easing, although the conditions are still very, very unpleasant out there for the drivers. The leader has got his hand up.
They're stopping.
Looks like they are. In fact, there's a red flag out there now. They are stopping this race, and perhaps that's just as well because the conditions are anything but pleasant. We're certainly in the dry here, but I just pity those drivers out there. Can't be many more places in the world that be more unpleasant to be than the cockpit of a single-seater racing car in this sort of condition. As though it's involved as Ray Wilkinson's Lotus 69. I see it there. It's green with a big broad yellow stripe. I'm pretty sure that looks like Ray Wilkinson's Lotus 69 that has been involved in this accident. It's over the back there. The marshals are working, pulling the body off it.
Well, once again, this is a car with good history. Kenny Smith won the Macau Grand Prix in a car like this one, but it was in the Formula 2 configuration. And of course, Graham Hill and Emerson Fittipaldi had considerable success in the Formula 2 version of the 69.
Well, this is certainly a baptism of rain, isn't it, for Waikato Regional Television?
A very potent little car, but we're about to start and they're off. So the drag off, of course, as we predicted, goes to the Porsche. Higgins is well out in front now, followed by the little Mike Coleman GDV. I think that'll be going into second place, just looking at them. But it'll be interesting to note, Digby, just how the Pine Pack car goes this time. Because I've seen this boy Andrew Anderson driving, and I think he's definitely going to be one of our up-and-coming saloon car people.
Yes, well, it was his brother that was always famous in the Camaro and in other Mustangs in the Pine Pack cars, but he's got a better start this time. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. Just looking down the grid as they come through now. And is this the chance for the ex-Jim Richards escort? No, he's certainly driving it a wee bit like Jim Richards. A bit of smoke out the back. Yes, and he's going to have a crack on the inside. And he's just been... The doors of Mike Coleman shut the door on him in the Alpha.
Here's a second and third car, which is... we've got a very clear-cut leader at present in car 14, but 51 and 102 are the two that are really competing very strongly against each other.
Well, Mike Coleman moved over across the line. held out the escort of Raiden Smith. So once again, they're going to work the back part of the course. Meanwhile, the Porsche is a country mile ahead in first place, as you'd expect. We're picking up the second and third, and they are side by side down the back straight. And it's going to come down to the braking, but still the Alpha has it.
Yes, a bit of line into the corner, and he's defensively driving. It's turning in very well onto the corners, and he's quite confident, but just a matter of when the other boy can get on the power. Raiden Smith, if he can get it on quick enough, he'll just hold him out, and he's setting him up for that. You can see him just diving from side to side, looking for the gap.
Well, he's certainly letting him know he's there, isn't he?
Oh,
He just
yes.
pops it. And is he on the inside there? He's touched him. And
trying.
that's just where we lose the camera angle, because we won't see him for the next corner, but I'm sure they touched their bill.
Yes, they're a wee bit long time coming through, so whether we have lost the second and third car, I don't know, but they were certainly, yes, there's the yellow flags, and he spun, the Alpha spun, anyway, he's off and into the race again, so it must have been a very close call over there. Now here's the Pine Pack car. Now has that moved up into second place? It has indeed. Now there's 69, Andrew Anderson. Now he's off with a clear track.
And I think he's got Gary Doyle behind him, and the notchback. Oh my God!
He just didn't even
Andy
look
Anderson's
like
gone straight through the barriers.
Yep.
And tyres sprayed and sprinkled everywhere. He's okay, but the car,
he's just
that
turning it off
it.
and just went to the emergency switch there on the side to turn it off. He got carried away with the occasion. That's unfortunate. It looked like it locked up and maybe got out on the marbles a wee bit and just went straight ahead and straight through the drum.
So it looks like we've got Mark Ross in second place, and the Ford Escort of Raiden Smith is right behind him. Now he was the man that popped off the Alpha Sud as he's trying to overtake him in the back part of the course. The Alpha Sud went right round and he's well out of contention. But the little Escort got back onto the game quickly enough to resume. He's in third, right behind Mark Ross in the Ford Mustang GT. Forgetting about the Porsche out in the lead, he's well and truly gone. This is the last race, and these are the last laps of today. And it looks like we're just starting to get a bit of a sprinkle of water here. And Mark Ross coming into the main straight, and he is in fact, no, he's going into the back, into the main straight, and he's still holding out the little Escort RS. Paul Higgins, the architect from Auckland, still leading. So we've got in second place, a long way back, the Mustang, the Escort, and then we've got the big XB GT of Kirk Bench, the Ford.
Oh, look at here's Coleman coming through the field also. He's really trying very hard. Car number 51, he's trying to make up for the misdemeanor they made down at the other corner, but the battle now, of course, as you say, Digby, is between the Mustang, which is driving terribly defensive. It must be the widest one that Raiden Smith's seen for a long time.
Yes, and he's slow through the round.
He hugs the corner there, and he just not leaving any gap at all for him.
There's no way around it. This is the Fiat 131 in shot at the moment. That's the car of Grant Shirley, and here comes the checkered flag, and it is Paul Higgins in first place, and we'll just keep an eye on second place. It should be the Mustang, car number 5 of Mark Ross, in the 1966 Mustang notchback, the white one.
Yes,
the starter doesn't have much to do at the moment.
No, it's a long way between them.
It's hanging very limply, and I'm not talking about his dummy.
So we'll be looking to see out of the Mustang and the twin camera, the Ford Escort, as to where they'll end up. But we're still waiting for them, and here they come now, side by side as they go past us. How are they going to get to the line?
Well, from our camera angle, we couldn't tell, but I would say it would have been the Mustang because he has the extra power. And there's Alan Dick looking...
My godfather, I'm going on a
studious.
diet tomorrow. I didn't realise. Profile? Bit of a double chin there, Alan, old thing.
Yeah, I reckon I look all right. You can't, no double chins.
And with me, one of the other major sponsors of the Classic Telecom Motorfest, Robert Kitchingman is with me from ICI Auto Colour. You enjoying the racing, Robert?
Oh, it's fantastic. I'm just worried about standing here, that one of us is going to skid on these wet roads and collect us. But
well, I think they're just about finished. They're just doing their sort of glory lap at the moment, so you should be all right at the moment, I think. We've been watching that too. We're all ready to jump every time anything comes around that corner down there.
And they're away. The TR3 got away pretty good at Bert Dove. He got a good start. the field gets charging off, but it is the Ginetta that leads them down to the first corner. There's someone diving in on the inside of the TR3. We can see there 13, Les Fraser-Jones and the buckler. He took a very tight line and made up a couple of places there going into the first corner.
Actually, those bucklers, considering that they were virtually home-built kit cars for 1954, were quite advanced. Quite a good-looking body. You compare that to, say, the cars that you think of 1954, the Standard Vanguards and that. It was quite an advanced-looking car for its time.
Yes, I mean, they had a good suspension layout and something that you could adjust and get pretty good. I think Jimmy Palmer started off in one. And,
I believe so.
And,
so did
and
Jim
went
Boyd
very
also
well
raced one.
Yes.
Jim Boyd raced one for a number of years.
That's right.
But that Ginetta, it's quite a superb looking car, isn't it? And the colour suits it. Here we are talking about colours and things. But certainly nice silver grey colour.
Well, he's spread eagling them a wee bit off the start line. It's quite a gap going down back to the in about 5th place is the GD6. The Ginetta certainly looks at home on the circuit, that's for sure.
Jeff Short in 2nd place. Car 5, Bert Dove in the TR3. Car 13, which is Les Fraser-Jones and the buckler with the Club of Climax motor. And then a long gap back to the rest of the field, which is the GT6. The Marcos. I think if there is a battle among the women, I think that it's being won by Kylie Walker in the Ford Scorpion. It's a car I don't know very much about at all, but it's a New Zealand built special, Scorpion, built in 1961.
It has to be the sort of horses for courses here, I think. But there's a great deal going on here between the GD6 and the looking at the car of
on the screen is car of Mike Courtney. This was Lost in 7 base special. And I see that it was actually built in 1935. A lot of these cars are now being replicated and created.
Diane Sharp, that seems to be a bit of the battle for the ladies there. But there's a good dice going on also between car 30s and Jeff Short.
Well, in fact, Les Fraser-Jones has now taken over 2nd place.
Yes, yeah. Well, he's got a lot of pressure on him from Jeff Short. He's sitting there too.
Oh, look at that. The Speedwell front has come off the car of Stephanie Chilcott. This is the MG Midget, which she drove up here from Wellington. She's going to need some repairs to get it back again. Need to put the front on it.
It looks like
the headlights.
It's not going to be aerodynamic the way it's running there now.
It looks as though very much as though she's clouted the tyres somewhere. But anyways, there was the whole front, the whole one-piece front.
Yes, well, it seems to have developed into a sort of a two-race, the A section and the B section here, but quite a dice going on between the GD6, car number 10, and then we've got the Marcos in behind there.
Well, the others hasn't been one of the most action-packed of all races, except for the oh, she's got the front back on a car.
No, that's the buckler, I think, that one.
No, in the background there.
Oh,
we
yes,
in fact saw the car with its front back on.
Oh, it might have just stopped and she might have been doing some work to it.
Yeah, no, the bonnet was lying in the middle of the track and she was 100 metres down the road, so it looks like they got the car back again.
I was trying to give her the benefit of the doubt.
I shall keep my eagle eye open here. I think the checkered flag is out now. It is too. The checkered flag is out for the Ginetta, Tony Herbert.
So that's a good win for a very nice prepared, looks a tremendously prepared little car, and well driven. He hasn't just put a foot wrong anyway. Well, here we see coming off the line now,
Sir Jack Brabham.
Yeah, not even wearing a hat.
No, none of them are, so that we can see them all.
Well, that's great.
And he's waving to the crowd.
There you are, ladies and gentlemen, Sir Jack Brabham.
World champion 1959, 1960 and 1966.
Just for our younger viewers today, those young lads out there are thinking, gosh, I'd like to be a racing car driver. When did that happen for you? When did you decide to be a racing car driver?
When I was 20 years of age. And really, I think probably 20 years of age is a bit too late these days to start motor racing. I think it's a great opportunity people have got these days to be able to get out go-karting or motorcycles or something like that at a very early age, which all helps to get them in the right position to go motor racing later on.
You started your career off in the Speedway. How did that happen?
Well, just from my point of view, I got taken in there by accident, I suppose, really. I really didn't know anything about motor racing after I came out of the Air Force. And when the war was over, an American married a girl that lived just near me. And I got to know him, and he was involved in motor racing. And he was racing midgets in America before he went to Australia. And of course, he settled down in Australia, and I got to know him. And of course, the next thing, he bought a midget himself, done a bit of racing there. I got involved with him, and I had a little engineering shop at that time, and we decided that I'd build a midget and look after it, and he'd drive it. And of course, that went off very well for a little while. Huntley's wife decided that she didn't want him driving anymore. And then we were left with a motor car there and no driver, so I thought, well, I'll have a go at driving this myself. And that's really how it happened.
This is 1947.
1947, yeah.
So before 1947, what did you drive? Your own car?
My father's motor car when he wasn't looking, quite often.
So that was your only... You had a car of your own?
Yeah, I did actually. When I was in the Air Force, my first car was a 1934 Ford. And,
how fast did that go?
Oh, fast enough, had a V8 engine in it, but I couldn't stop it was the problem.
Oh, I see, no brakes.
Yeah.
After you won the Australian title, it was obviously time to move on to other things.
Well, yes, I suppose that really is the case. And my first road event was a hill climb.
Right.
And that's how I come to get to know the people who are involved in the other side of racing, which was just, road racing, if you like. And I'd done 2 or 3 hill climbs, and then, of course, I ventured from there and bought a Cooper and started road racing in Australia.
Well, tell us about, this is the Cooper Bristol.
The Cooper Bristol came a little bit later, 1952, well, end of 52, beginning of 53. I bought a Cooper Bristol. That was the first proper big racing car that I had.
So why did you choose the Cooper?
Well, it just happened to be for sale there. It just happened to be for sale in the window, and I used to go up and press my nose against the window and look and drooling over this motor car a few nights. And anyway, eventually raked up enough money to buy it, and I got a bit of sponsorship from Radix, and that's how it started in the real motor cars.
How did you progress from the Australian circuit to the European circuit, where presumably they had so much money going into their teams? How could you afford to get into the European scene?
How it all came about, of course, was because of New Zealand. In 1954, New Zealand created the New Zealand International Grand Prix.
Right.
And invited drivers from overseas to come to it, of course, which made it a true international meeting. And I was lucky enough to be invited to come over to it as well. And that gave me the opportunity to meet international drivers who I knew absolutely nothing about at the time. And of course, I listened to all sorts of stories about motor racing in Europe and all that sort of thing. And it was suggested that I should come over and have a year's experience in Europe. So that's what I did.
Did you ever see yourself winning world titles?
No, I never ever thought about it at the time. I didn't even know really a proper world championship existed.
When you won your first world title, how did you feel? I mean, I know you felt ecstatic, but how did you feel being in amongst all those heroes and you coming out on top?
Well, I suppose yeah, it's just circumstances as you go along, really. You advance through the sport. And going to England, of course, was probably the best move that I made, going there, because that gave me the opportunity to go and meet people like John Cooper, for instance. The fact I'd been driving a Cooper here, I decided I'd go straight to the Cooper Car Company when I got to England and meet John Cooper, which I did. And luckily, I got on very well with John, and we had a very happy association for quite a few years, and he really helped launch me along. And of course, by 1957, I became a works driver for Coopers.
What about the other drivers at the time? You had a lot of very famous names racing along with you, didn't you? People like Sterling Moss and Jim Clark, etc.
Yeah, that's right. Well, when I got to England, of course, Hawthorne and Fangio, Peter Collins, and quite a few of these boys were at the top. They were motor racing was revolving around, and I was at the bottom, sort of, you know, coming along,
So
trying to learn what I could. Yeah, and I had the opportunity to drive in amongst these heroes too, a few times early on. Not necessarily in the same sort of car, but in those days they had Formula 1 and Formula 2 mixed together. And I was driving a Formula 2 car and had the opportunity to go and drive out on the circuit and watch people like Hawthorne and Moss, Tony Brooks and all these sort of people driving there. And I learned a lot, of course, very early on when I got there, and had a lot of good experience early on, which helped me no end.
Now, obviously driving was very important to you and you did really well at it, but there was another side to you. You were very interested also in the engineering, the engines of these cars. And in the early 60s, I think you revolutionised the way in which engines and cars were put together. Could you tell us about that?
Well, when I got to England, of course, I started working for Coopers and working in the workshop, building cars and that sort of thing, as well as driving them. And, of course, I kept pushing Coopers because Coopers had never been in Grand Prix racing at any time. The cars that they were building were very small cars, small sports cars, and you know, biggest capacity car was about 1,500 cc's. And it was really a matter of thinking, well, you know, gee, it'd be great if we could get out there into the Grand Prix with these sort of cars. And it was just purely a question of trying to come up with an engine that would fit in our type of car that we were building there. And I eventually got a Bristol engine into the back of one of these cars.
They'd always been in the front before, hadn't they? The engines had always been in the front,
yeah, well,
and now they're going into the back.
Well, all the Grand Prix cars had the engine in the front, but the Cooper Car Company, when I got over there, were already starting to build rear engine cars, but they're all cars with motorcycle engines and small engines there, but when they come to putting a big engine in the back, that was a different proposition.
So when did you build your own first car, the first Brabham car?
That didn't come till 1963, but I got a lot of experience at Coopers beforehand. You know, for instance, they let me build my own car the first year I got there, and I spent most of the season on the side working at night building this car. Although it was revolving around a Cooper sports car, I turned it into a single-seat car, but leaving the body more or less the same, but put the Bristol engine in it and started in the British Grand Prix with it in England that year.
And is that the car you drove in 1966 to the World Championship?
No.
That was another Brabham.
This was a Cooper car, and I brought that car to Australia and won the Australian Grand Prix with it in 1955. So my first year over there, I really achieved quite a bit, really, considering the time. So from there we went on to win the World Championship twice with the Cooper. So it was a great experience, and being involved in the development and the testing of these cars as we went along was just as much satisfaction to me as actually driving and winning the championship.
1966 has to be a highlight year for you. Can you tell us what happened in 1966?
Well, we had a sort of 18 months warning that the formula was going to change to 3 litre. And it had been 1500 cc's at that time. And when it changed to 3 litre, of course, it was at time to start choosing an engine and looking around what we were going to do for the new formula. Because we didn't have a 3 litre engine available to us. So I went to Repco in Australia and put a suggestion to them that I had an idea in my head that I think we could get an engine together that we could go Grand Prix racing with. And anyway, luckily enough, the people I spoke to were receptive, and it wasn't long before we got a design put together, and Repco built us an engine, which we won the World Championship with 2 years in a row, 66 and 67, which was a pretty good effort as far as Australia is concerned. And it was even better than that because the whole team was more or less made up of Australian and New Zealand people. We found that Australian and New Zealand mechanics were by far the best to have over there because of their background here of you know, building their own cars, doing their own work as well as driving and this sort of thing. They came from the right environment, which that environment didn't exist over there. Really, you didn't have people building their own cars. They just went and bought one and went and drove it. Whereas the environment in Australia and New Zealand was the right one to choose mechanics. And that all helped us win the championship because we had the right mechanics, the right team. We had an Australian designer as well as myself. And it was just the fact that it was a complete Australian-New Zealand effort, if you like, and win the championship was very satisfying.
To be such a world champion, what about the glamour side of things? I mean, were you courted by kings? Did you get drowned in champagne? What was it like at the height of your career?
When I look back, I regret that now because I didn't have time.
Too busy fiddling with the engines.
Unfortunately, you know, I was not just a driver.
Yes.
If I'd been just a driver, maybe it would have been a bit different. But my life over there was really working 7 days a week. And that's all we worked for. We worked 7 days a week on the cars, and then we went and raced them. Well, my big problem was that I was born 30 years too early. Because, you know, it would have been great to have been driving when the money was coming. We'd have had a chance to earn the money. But when I was driving, we were striving to get every bit of money to advance, to get the next stage, upgrade our cars, go to the next type of engine, etc. So we really just kept turning the money over all the time. With the satisfaction of coming up and challenging Ferrari or whatever.
Did you become friends with some of these other heroes of the racetrack?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I became very good friends with most of them, and you know, someone like Sterling Moss, for instance. You know, we see quite a lot of one another even today. And Sterling was probably the toughest driver I ever drove against. I learned a lot from Sterling Moss early on, and having the chance to drive with some of those drivers, of course, was the opportunity to learn just what was going on.
Came to New Zealand a few times, didn't you? For the Grand Prix. What, 1958?
Well, 1954 was the first one, which is, as I said before, that's how I come to go to Europe. And I came here 13 years running